Acapulco, Mexico. This is Anarchast.
So, Christian, it's that time of year again.
It's getting cold, man.
It is getting cold. It is getting cold. But you know where it's not getting cold?
Acapulco?
That's right. And you know where we're going to be in February?
Acapulco?
Yep. Last week of February, Anarchapulco. I'm speaking down there this year.
It's going to be
So I know you're looking forward to seeing me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm looking forward to broadcasting.
It's
We're going to do some interviews. Who are you interested in seeing down there?
of course, Jeff Berwick,
Well, yeah, it's his conference, obviously.
Larkin Rose,
One of my favorite anarchists.
Adam Kokesh.
Well, Adam's always fun.
Yeah, we saw him here. Lauren Southern.
Hot. also brilliant. So I'm interested in seeing her.
Luke Rukowski
Yeah, from We Are Change, of course.
and Roger Ver.
The Bitcoin Jesus.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
That should be awesome. Well, and don't leave out some friends of the show, like Activist Post contributor Derek Bros. He's going to be
That's
down
gonna be
there.
great, yeah.
And Backwards is going to be performing. They're like the headlining
I can't wait
act.
for that.
Very cool, anarchist, kind of rap punk. Very, very cool. I haven't seen them yet, but I'm interested. And, you can't go wrong. Acapulco, 5-star hotel, Mundo Imperial. It's going to be super amazing. Drinks, sun, I'll be by the pool for sure. It's actually rented out the entire spot just for Anarchapulco.
That's incredible.
Well, it is the biggest anarchist conference in the world. Right? So 5-star hotel, Mundo Imperial in Acapulco.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong, man. And if anybody wants to join us, and I hope that they do come and join us, go and visit anarchapulco.com. Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on Facebook with our content partner, Activist Post. So that is facebook.com/Activist Post. Also on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. And on Twitter/Periscope. You can go to Twitter at Vin Armani to see that stream. And of course, we are every week on Monday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time, right here, live in Las Vegas. So today, our guest is Jeff Berwick, the founder of the Dollar Vigilante. Now, this guy, as you will see in this interview, travels quite a bit, and he was unable to get on Skype for our interview right now, but just a little while earlier, we went ahead and recorded this interview with him, and so I will leave you with that, and we will come right back. Christian, please. So, today my guest is Jeff Berwick. Jeff is a Canadian-born entrepreneur, libertarian, and anarcho-capitalist activist. In 2009, he founded the Dollar Vigilante, an anarcho-capitalist blog focusing on gold, silver, mining stocks, Bitcoin, and offshore banking. And in 2015, Berwick started Anarchapulco, the world's first and largest international anarcho-capitalist conference held in Acapulco, Mexico. The 2017 conference is set to be held at the Hotel Princess Mundo Imperial. And it just so happens that that is a conference that Christian and I will be attending and I will be speaking at. So, Jeff Berwick, welcome to the Vin Armani Show.
Thank you, Vin. It's a pleasure.
It's great to have you here. I would like to start on an interesting aspect of your recent history. I was having a debate with a friend of mine last week, very good friend, very old friend, and he's a bit of a socialist. And as the debate between an anarchist and a socialist always tends to end, once the socialist realizes that they're on the wrong end of the moral stick, he told me, well, then why don't you just, and of course, renounce your citizenship and move somewhere else, right? And so as anarchists, we've all heard this. But unique among very few people that I have met have actually taken that option. You being one of those people, it's something that you write about, it's something you talk about, it's something that you help other people to do. If you could, please, can you tell us why you chose to take that option, how you decided where to go, and sort of what it entailed?
Yeah, sure. First, it's kind of funny, isn't it, that you're there in the land of the free, the USA, and you have a socialist telling you that if you don't like the socialism in the US, you should go somewhere else. Kind of funny how that country changed quite a bit, but that's a little bit of how history just seems to tend to happen over and over, because we didn't really have the internet before, so people didn't really know what's really happened before. Most of what people think about history is almost all totally wrong, all taught by the government and the government schools, and they give you all this stuff. So now we have the internet, so hopefully people start to wake up. But that is funny that you have a socialist in the US telling you to get out of the US if you don't like it so much. So I guess, but it is interesting. The US is becoming heavily social. Well, it is heavily socialist. It's I call it a mix between fascism and communism. I call it fascio-communist. I call it a fascio-communist police state. That's how crazy it's getting there. And it's also funny how people say, if you don't like it, why don't you leave? It's like, well, you're the one who's doing all this immoral stuff. Why don't you leave? I'm not doing anything to you. You are attacking me daily through your ideas and through the people who back up your ideas with force, with guns, which most socialists don't like, which is kind of funny because you can't really have very good socialism without guns with the government. But as far as for me personally, as you mentioned, I grew up in Canada, very cool, a place called Edmonton, which is where Edmonton Oilers hockey team, Wayne Gretzky and all that. Most people don't know and have never been there, but it's incredibly cold. It's for 6 months of the year, it's below freezing and well below freezing. It'd be minus 30 or minus 40 in Fahrenheit for weeks or even months at a time. So I grew up there, and I was like, why? I said to my family, like, why would you ever move here? Why are we here? And they didn't really have a good answer, which is kind of funny. But I was like, as soon as I can, I'm leaving. So pretty much as soon as I was able, became an adult, I got my high school badge of indoctrination from the government indoctrination camps that my mom wanted me to get, which I've never had to use ever, obviously. I don't think anyone's ever had to use it. I don't have, like, has anyone ever asked you for your high school diploma? No, never. So it's just a big scam. And so as soon as I did, the warmest place in Canada was Vancouver, so I moved there. And then, as you mentioned, I started up, or maybe you didn't mention, I started an internet company there that grew into the largest financial internet company in Canada, still is to this day, called stockhouse.com. And as soon as I finished that, I was like, okay, it's still too rainy and too cold and way too socialist. Canada's even more socialist in many ways than the US. And high taxes, high regulation, the government medical system, which is horrible, absolutely atrocious. And so after that, I said, okay, I've got a little bit of time now because I sold my company and I bought a sailboat, a catamaran, a 35-foot catamaran. I tried to sail around the world just to figure out what was going on because I knew what I was seeing on television wasn't the truth at all. And of course, now we all know it's fake news, or they call us fake news, but they're the fake news, obviously. It's all Orwellian now. And so I sailed around the world, or tried to sail around the world. I sank it in El Salvador. And then I just bought a backpack, and I just kept going, and I went to about 80 countries after that. And what I realized is every country I went to was not what they said it was. In fact, most countries were a lot freer than the US and Canada in many ways. Not in every way, but in many ways. And so that opened my eyes a lot, and around that time I really started to learn a lot about libertarianism, about anarchism, about Austrian economics, all that kind of stuff I was studying the whole time. Well, not really studying, just reading all the time about all that stuff. And I just kept going, and eventually I lived in China for a while, and I actually ended up making a movie with Jackie Chan in China just by happenstance. And then I was living in Thailand, and I had a crazy Thai girlfriend. I had to leave because she was literally trying to kill me almost every day. And I thought, okay, I've been to about 100 countries now. Where should I go? Because I feel like settling down a bit. This was after about 6-7 years of just living in hotels, literally, just around the world, or on my boat for a year. And I thought, where was my favorite place? And I thought, I loved Mexico. It's funny because it's so close to where I'm from. I was kind of hoping it'd be further away, more exotic, more interesting. But I was like, Mexico is just phenomenal. I spent actually a year traveling through it on my sailboat, and I really only planned to maybe spend a week or two in Mexico, and I spent a year. In fact, I actually spent 3 months here in Acapulco, and I was only planning to spend 2 or 3 days here because I loved it so much. So then I just came back here, but I actually live what's called a perpetual traveler or prior taxpayer type lifestyle, which basically means I don't officially live anywhere. I actually do officially live in the Dominican Republic, but that's basically so I can avoid being extorted by governments around the world. And so I live that kind of lifestyle, and because of that, I don't technically really have to pay income tax anywhere in the world, and get treated a lot better by the governments wherever I go, because everywhere I go, I'm a tourist, and they always treat tourists pretty well. It's their own tax slaves that they really go after. So that's essentially why I've been living this way, although I do spend a lot of time here in Acapulco, Mexico.
Now, you are officially a citizen of the Dominican Republic. And
yeah, actually.
How does that occur? It's fascinating to me. It's one of those, people acquiring citizenship not by birth is it's a difficult thing, isn't it? I mean, I know that people talk about it, but I've rarely met somebody who's actually been able to do it.
Yeah, it's not easy at all. And I actually said this a few years ago, that it's going to get harder and harder because they're trying to put in these tax systems all around the world. They're trying to nail everyone down into a tax system, and because of that, they're making it harder and harder for anyone to become a citizen of another country. There's still a few countries that offer it as they call it citizenship by investment, but those are generally going to be $300,000 and up to $5 or $10 million. Places like St. Kitts and even places like Cyprus and Malta. And other places. But in general, if you don't want to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, it's quite hard. You generally have to be a resident of somewhere for a period of time, and that period of time can change, as every government rule can change. So I actually applied to be a resident of Dominican Republic about 10 years ago, and at the time they had a rule that you had to be resident for 2 years. You didn't have to necessarily be there most of the time, in fact, hardly any of the time, but after 2 years you could apply for citizenship. And I wanted to get that because I wanted to get out of Canada, which has massive amount of taxation. And if you don't live in Canada and you live somewhere else, you don't have to pay taxes in Canada anymore, so I really like that idea. And I don't want to live there anymore anyway, and I never want to live there again. And so I applied, and it was supposed to be 2 years, and then as soon as my 2 years was up, they changed it to 3 years. Then when that was up, they changed it to 4 years, then 5 years, then 7 years, now 8 years. And so it was about 9.5 or 10 years, and I finally just got it a couple months ago. It was it was not easy, but it actually now affords me a lot more options as far as not only taxes, but also travel. For example, I wanted to go to Iran recently because, of course, I don't think everything we're being told about Iran on CNN is necessarily exactly what's going on, and I've never been there before. And as a Canadian, I had to go through this lengthy process to get a visa to go to Iran. It took months. They wanted to know everything about me, and they said when I get there, they're going to have a government person there, and the person's going to be with me the entire time that I'm in Iran. Which, being an anarchist, having this government person with you all day is not going to be good. I'm probably going to end up in jail for something. And but being a Dominican, I can actually go there without a visa. So these just offers you more options if you have more. I call them slave cards, passports. It's actually ridiculous that we need them to travel with not to private property, just to places. And so passports were only actually put into place after World War I, which actually a lot of these wars are put in, World War I, World War II, to bring in more bigger world governments. So World War I was brought in to get everyone into passports. World War II was brought in to essentially lock things down even more. We have to stop this, and then all the problems that caused, and they're going to bring in the European Union after that, so that'll stop the wars that they already started in order to bring in this bigger one world government system. And that sort of thing. And then, of course, of the false flag terrorist attack of 9/11, which was brought in to bring in just massive police state in the U.S. and Europe and all over the place. So, but in general, yeah, passport, to getting a second one is very hard, although I'm about to get a third one. I've actually just got an email from the president of Liberland, Vitjedlika. I don't know if you know Liberland.
I think I have heard about it, but if you tell the audience a little bit about this.
Yeah, it's a anarcho-capitalist started it. So it's a piece of land in between Serbia and Croatia. That is about 7 square miles, very small. It's in between like 2 rivers or something like that. And neither country, for really detailed and specific reasons, don't want to claim it's their land. It will actually break all kinds of treaties if they do. So it's really unclaimed land. So Vit Jedlicka, an anarcho-capitalist, went there and he planted a black and yellow flag and he said, this is Liberland. And they've been growing it like crazy. They actually, I think they just got recognized as a country in Guatemala. I think they're about to get recognized by at least one European country coming up. I don't think I'm allowed to say which. And because of my involvement in trying to help them, and they've been raising a lot of money, and they actually have billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines if this becomes a real country to make it into essentially a narco-capitalist Hong Kong. Which will have massive benefits, by the way, for the Serbia and Croatia being so close to that much wealth. But they're both, trying to fight it off. It's actually mostly, I believe, I think it's Croatia. Yeah, Croatia is the one who really is trying to stop it. Serbia doesn't seem to care as much. But it's ongoing, a little bit of a battle. But I just got an email from the president of Liberland saying that due to my help with the founding of the country, that I can get citizenship now. So whenever I go over there, I'm going to get my third passport. I've also thought about applying for Sealand. I don't know if you know
yes,
what that
yep, of course. Yeah, that's one of the original sort of experiments, if you will, but it's been around for a very long time.
Yeah, and that one's a little bit more gimmicky. It's like an oil platform.
Sure, right.
The more passports, the better. It just gives you more options. It's kind of funny as an anarchist to want more passports because, of course, as an anarchist, we don't think we should need a passport. We don't think we should need some government identification and be checked everywhere we go to make sure we are who we say we are by government people. But in this topsy-turvy world where everything's upside down, it actually makes sense to have more passports, not less.
You're very much, I guess, what people would term a citizen of the world. I mean, you have taken the philosophy and you're living it on a daily basis. And one of the things that you are, I guess, very well known for, amongst the other things, I mean, I guess I didn't mention Anarchast, which is also your video series where you've involved and interviewed tons of different anarchists from around the world. But in particular, I mean, with your financial background, you help people to understand how they can protect their money and what the best kind of investment options or protection options are. What right now would you say is your number one, be it either currency or process or country that allows people to protect their money the best?
Well, you brought up how I started the Dollar Vigilante. The reason I started that was after my internet company, which was worth $240 million at the peak of the tech bubble in the year 2000, it went almost bankrupt a year later after the tech bubble burst. And I asked everyone, including like top Wall Street people, top MBAs, all these sort of people who went to school and learned all this stuff, which is mostly garbage. And I said, what happened? They said, oh, that just happens sometimes. And I was like, what? And so I went, and the first book I read was The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, who's another anarcho-capitalist. And he explained how the whole central banking system is actually a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. And it's only meant to enrich the very, very, not just the 1%, the 0.00001%, and impoverish everyone else. And so once I learned that, I started writing the Dollar Vigilante and started telling people about Austrian economics and about central banks and how bad they are and how evil they are. And it's the same as government. I call myself a freedom fighter against mankind's two biggest enemies, the governments and the central banks. And so as far as what to invest in, from that standpoint, of course, I write the Dollar Vigilante, so the whole point of the Dollar Vigilante is surviving and prospering during and after the dollar collapse. If you look at fiat currencies, every fiat currency up until the modern ones have all collapsed, and they always will collapse. There's nothing backing them. They're just pieces of paper. They just saw in India, just in the last month, how worthless they actually are. They just canceled 80% of the money that people had in their pockets. They just said, that's not worth anything anymore. It's just a piece of paper. Venezuela, same thing. This happens all the time, and this will happen to every currency, and it's actually ongoing process. The US dollar has been collapsing since 1913, just inflation by the Federal Reserve. So I write a lot about that. So in order to protect yourself from those collapses, and of course if those collapse, the financial system collapse, and for a period of time, the entire economies will collapse. the best thing to get into is hard assets. And one of the hard assets that I include is Bitcoin, which isn't necessarily a hard asset, it's a virtual asset. But you asked me what's my favorite currency. By far, Bitcoin. It's
Mine as well.
Yeah, it outperformed every currency in the world this year, as it has most years. It was up 76% against every currency this year. It's up 200% since last summer. It's currently at around $780. It was $250 last summer. When I first got into it was in 2011 when it was at $3. So yeah, I obviously like Bitcoin a lot. I still see massive upside for it. As far as what countries to go to be more free, that's a really tricky question. It all depends. There is no free place on earth. The closest is Liberland, but Serbia or Croatia won't let people go on it yet. They'll arrest you if you try to go over there, which is actually a war crime now. This is all going to get very interesting with Liberland, yeah, you just have to find the place, and that's why actually one reason I started the Dollar Vigilante is to tell people, to form this group, a community of people who knew these sort of things and wanted more freedom. And now we have thousands of people around the world who all have something we call TDV, the Dollar Vigilante groups. We have hundreds of them around the world, in almost every country in the world. And it's mostly entrepreneurs and expats who have left their country that they were born in and gone somewhere else and made a life for themselves. So every country has its positives and negatives. Of the 100 countries I went to, I would say if I was forced to live in the US or any of those other 95 countries, I can't think of too many. Well, there'd be Cuba. Yeah, even though there is some positives to living in Cuba as a foreigner, but still it's just way too latched down there, way too big a government, way too communist. Venezuela right now, I was just there earlier this year. That was already getting crazy, and it's gotten way crazier since. So I wouldn't live there. I haven't been to North Korea, but I probably wouldn't want to live in North Korea. But other than that, the U.S. is pretty close to the bottom of the list. It's just too much government, too much regulation, too much fear all over the place. It's just that the mainstream media or fake news just puts out just tons of fear. You can just sense it when you're there. I know you're in Vegas, so it's a little better. If I had to live in the U.S., it'd be Miami or Vegas, really.
I often tell people that Vegas is perhaps the last free, and it's not city of Las Vegas, I'll tell you, but it's Clark County, right? So outside, which most people who come to Vegas, they don't actually come to the city of Las Vegas, they come to unincorporated Clark County. And then, you have Summerlin, which is basically just private land that Howard Hughes bought. It actually is, the entire city is private land. A lot of people don't know that. Summa Corporation owns it. But I often tell people that it's like the last free city, but it's getting less and less and less. So, yeah, that's why I'm here,
Yeah, you can still smoke in some places. Yes. You can still drink after a certain time. Oh,
absolutely. You can walk around with the alcohol on the street, It's so
it's still got a little bit of freedom there, but other than that, you go to places like New York or something where if you call a transgender person and you don't say "she" or whatever the word is, you get charged $250,000. It's just getting insane in so many of those places. And I just find like a place like Acapulco, like everything you say about Vegas, you can do here. You can even do it quite a bit more. You can go out with cops and drink at 8 in the morning or wherever you want to go.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's very free that way. But every place has its positives and negatives. But I've just found that most people just have no idea how much freer it is in other places. And that's why the media is always focused on that. So I'm sitting here in Mexico. I love it. I feel so safe here. Like I feel way safer than I feel in the US or Canada. The chances of a cop kidnapping me here is 0%. They just wouldn't even try because people around here would kill them. And that's good, in my opinion, because they're aggressing against people. Every place has got its positive and negative, but that's why they put on the TV in the U.S. Mexico is so dangerous because they don't want people to know. Like it's so close. It's literally like for some people, you just drive across the border and you can do almost anything here. This is almost like a free country. and so that's why even when they do let the Americans kind of go out to Cancun or Cabo, they try to make those areas as American as possible. That's actually why I don't like Cabo and Cancun. It feels just like you're in Florida or something. Everything's expensive. There's rules and regulations and cops all over the place. But as soon as you get outside of those places, you have quite a bit more freedom. So, that's just in general. And that's one of the things that I've also found is travel is the best education you can get. Forget about college, forget about school. If you're a young person and you want to get a true education, which is actually learn how the world works, just travel for a while, and that's the best education.
So in February, speaking of travel, you're going to have quite a few anarchists of all different stripes and libertarians traveling down to you in Acapulco. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Anarchapulco for sure. It's great, awesome idea. I'm super excited to go down there and check it out. How did you come up with the idea for this conference? And if you could let people know what they could expect if they find themselves down in Acapulco in late February.
Yeah, the way I got the idea was kind of funny. I was going to a lot of freedom-related conferences in the U.S., and I'd always complain about it. So I'd go to Pork Fest up in New Hampshire, which I support the Free State Project, and there'd be cops on every corner, and I'd say, when's the bar close? And they'd be like, 12, and I'm like, well, what do we do after that? And it's like, well, go hide so you don't get arrested. It's like, why do they have these freedom conferences in the U.S.? It's one of the least free countries in the world. And so I said that on Facebook, and someone just, I forget who it was, but I should thank whoever that was, said, why don't you have a freedom conference down in Acapulco where you spend a lot of time? And I thought, well, I don't know if a lot of people want to come, and there really is no true anarchist conference, so this is something totally new. So there's, Pork Fest is very, very freedom-minded. There's a lot of anarchists, but there's also a lot of statists. They have a lot of politicians and stuff like that who go to it, but they're very libertarian, but they're still statists. They're not anarchists. Freedom Fest is the biggest sort of what they call a freedom conference in the world, but it has probably more statists than anarchists. Oh, actually way more statists than anarchists. The anarchists are a small minority. And then there used to be another one called Libertopia I used to go to in San Diego, but they shut down for personal reasons. And so I was thinking, well, no one's ever tried a true anarchist conference, a true anarcho-capitalist conference, just to make sure people understand the meaning. When I say anarchist, I don't mean the communist people with black masks who blow up Starbucks and stuff like that. And so being an entrepreneur, I just said, okay, well, let's just say we're going to do it, and we'll do it, and we'll just see what happens. That's just how you kind of figure out if these things are going to work or not. And the first one is 2015, and in February, and I wasn't expecting very many people. I was actually pretty resigned to maybe that no one will even come at all. And we got about, what was it, about 100 and, forget now, about 150 maybe.
That's pretty good for an international first time, yeah.
It was actually 250, yeah. Because I was expecting definitely no more than 50 or 100. And so I was shocked it was 250. And I had no plans to do it again the next year or anything. And at the end of the conference, a person shouted out, when are we doing it again next year? And I said, you know what? I never even thought about doing it again next year. Just I'm surprised this one had any interest. And everyone was there. It was all 250 people said, we're coming back. And I was like, okay. So we did it again this year. So February of 2016, we had about 500 people, so about double. And every single person, not every, I'm sure there was a couple I didn't talk to, but everyone I talked to said, yeah, we're coming back. This is the best. And so we're doing it again in February 2017, and we're definitely expecting well over 500. It could be as many as 1,000. We'll find out. You never know with these things. People just show up at the last minute a lot of times. And it's an amazing conference. It's really blossomed. It's got it's a real thing now as opposed to when I first started it. So our tagline this year is evacuate the state, brave the future. We got so many great speakers coming, including yourself and Larkin Rose, Jeffrey Tucker, Adam Kokesh, Lauren Southern, Luke Radowski, Julia Triansky, Barry Cooper of Never Get Busted Crew, Roger Veer, the Bitcoin Jesus, Rick Falconi of the Swedish Pirate Party. So he actually founded the Pirate Party, which is actually growing immensely. It's actually almost becoming government in Iceland now, essentially an anarchist.
Ton of seats, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of these people are real world changers. People like Vitjalika started up Liberland. These are the kind of people who are trying to create the new system that makes the old system obsolete. So with the anarchists before the internet and before Bitcoin specifically, there was a lot of just upset people, a lot of just depressed people, like, how are we going to change this? This is ridiculous, this system. And so a lot of them were just kind of just depressed. A lot of them weren't making a lot of money because a lot of them wanted to avoid the taxation system, and if you want to avoid that, you're going to have to go underground, and then you get arrested and all this kind of stuff. But now, thanks to the internet and Bitcoin, a lot of people are starting to make more money, and there's starting to get a lot more entrepreneurship going. And because of things like the internet and Bitcoin, there's a lot more opportunities for entrepreneurship. And so we've got so many people who are just changing things. We've got Christopher David of Arcade City, which is
I love Arcade City, yeah.
Yeah, it's an Uber competitor, but it's based on the blockchain. We've got Dan Larimer of Steemit.com. So that's an entirely new blockchain-based social media network. And of course, couldn't come at a better time than right now, where Facebook and Google are all blocking fake news, which is pretty much all the truth. And so, these are the people who are changing the world. So it's you haven't been before, but Vin, when you come down, you'll probably walk away like, wow, that's you needed like a week afterwards just to like process how many incredible people you met and how many incredible things people were working on, and also it's just a lot of fun, just on the beach in February in Mexico with a lot of freedom lovers in a very freedom-minded city.
Love it, love it. So if people are interested and they want to know more about Anarchapulco, it's anarchapulco.com. Please check it out. I'm very excited about this as a longtime anarchist. I had heard about it last year, but this year I'm super stoked to go. There's no way I'm gonna miss it. So in terms of the other projects, dollarvigilante.com, I would encourage everyone to go and check out. What would you say is the sort of top issue that you guys are focusing on with Dollar Vigilante right now? What's the hot issue?
Oh, there's so many things. We're nearing the end of so many things right now in the financial and economic and monetary system. Everything's falling apart right now. India, as I mentioned, Venezuela, and then you have Europe. Europe is fracturing as we speak. That really leaves the question, what's going to happen with the euro? Could completely collapse in the next couple of years. They're doing a war on cash, so they're trying to get everyone out of cash and try to make it so everyone's in the banking system, and then they're already moving to negative interest rates. So essentially, this massive government socialist democracy, which is very anti-freedom sort of system, backed by central banks, which is a tenet of communism, has sort of reached its final end of the rope. We're in the final end stages now. It might be still a couple years, but not much more than that. When I first started the Dollar Vigilante in 2010, I said, sometime between 5 and 10 years from now, this whole system ends. And we're now 6 years into it, almost 7. We're getting very, very close. And so we're just talking about that all the time. If you just check us out, actually the best way is just go on YouTube and look up our videos. We put out a video almost every day because there's so much stuff going on. We can't even cover half of it. And a lot of interesting stuff too about things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So we've made just massive amounts of money. I got a lot of people into Bitcoin at $3 in 2011, and last summer I got thousands of people I know just from the amount of people who have contacted me who all got into Bitcoin last summer around 250. It's now 780. And then we've gotten into other cryptocurrencies. There's a lot of exciting different ones. Things like gold and silver, that's been going up a lot. This was a great year for gold and silver. So pretty much everything we're into has been doing well, including mining stocks. We had some of them go up 500, 800% this year. So just a really good time. It's been down the last few months. Gold and silver's been down. The mining stocks have been down. With everything going on with Trump, the whole market's kind of confused. But Bitcoin has continued just to power through. So interesting times, definitely.
I love it. So for those people who, and honestly, now is the time, things are volatile, and I think a lot of people want to protect their money and they want to make investments. So I would definitely encourage people to check out Dollar Vigilante because it's coming from the mindset of the exact people who are watching this show, and it makes a lot of sense, the things that you guys do. I want to thank you, Jeff. I'll definitely see you down in Mexico, and I hope to have you back on to talk about some other financial things as things start to pick up during this coming year. But Jeff Berwick, thank you very much for being on the Vin Armani Show, and we will definitely have you back again.
Thank you.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.